better place and a better country, right?
You say you'd rather be governed by the first 100 people who walk in the room than the people at Goldman Sachs during the break.
When Trump won, it started right away. Now he actually, said it was, why did everybody kind of turn? I said they didn't turn. This was the whole campaign. You just didn't see it because you were so focused on winning that this opposition was building up the entire time. That this nullification process that has now started from the day that he won. And by the way, how did he win? The first call I made when he had the strategy was to Reince Priebus at the RNC. I'd met Reince Priebus for 2 minutes my entire life. We had a Tea Party thing at the Breitbart Embassy. He came over and I shook his hand. I called Reince and I said, you don't know me. I said, every day in the pages of Breitbart we light you up, right? But you don't know me. We got to meet right away. And I need Katie Walsh and I need Sean Spicer to come up here immediately and join the campaign. We hired Dave Bossie. Right, we made calls, all the evangelical organizations, all the Tea Party. We know we had to put together a coalition. We had to put together a coalition of the Republican establishment and this populist movement, right? The Trump movement and the establishment. It had to happen. We were number one, right? It's a combination of libertarians, limited government conservatives, neocons, right? Now, there's a huge never Trump wing out there that wasn't going to jump on board. In fact, the scariest number I think we had, Corey, was that in the generic ballot on that day, on the 13th of August, I think Reince told me later it was like at a 70. You have to be at 90 on the generic ballot to essentially win. 9 out of every 10 registered Republicans basically have to vote for you, or you're not going to be president of the United States. We were 70 because 30%, I guess, Republicans didn't use Republican. We had to close that, and we did it. Because we were focused on victory. We all came together. We could not have won this without the RNC and Reince Priebus. Right? He was a great part of it. Katie Walsh, Sean Spicer, all of them. Right? Now, when we got to D.C., 2 things happened. One, it was a total nullification process. And what I mean by that is that the Democratic Party, the progressive left, and the mainstream media have been trying to nullify the election results of 2016. Okay? Now, we can't let that happen. One of the reasons we can't let it happen, we can't let it happen for them. Because if we get in this process that we're going to contest every election, and by the way, if they try to nullify this thing and keep it going, and actually they think they're going to nullify it, they got to understand, we're not going to take that line down. Right?
Right.
And that's one thing this country doesn't need. We're not a banana republic, right? We've been trying to export democracy all over this planet. 16 years in Afghanistan. Defense Department just put their budget out the other day, I think, in some hearing for Afghanistan. $70 billion for next year, right? Already spent $850 billion over there, trying to export it. Look at the 2000, we've been doing this since what? Athens? England? Magna Carta? We've been doing this a long time in the Judeo-Christian West, right? A long time. A couple of thousand years, at least a couple of half a millennia in England. And look at the 2016 presidential election, right? Look at Clinton, what she raised $2.2 billion. I think she spent, somebody told me $750 million on attack ads on Donald Trump.
Wow.
That's kind of what we've devolved to. It's not about issues anymore. It's about personal destruction, right? We had to put together a coalition. But that coalition is kind of frayed right now. And that's why we have to have a partners discussion about it. Okay, I'm into winning, right? Victory begets victory. If you look at what the alternative is, it's a different country than we were bequeathed. Okay, they know that, we know that. And that's what they're fighting for. By the way, I don't hold up to their fighting. They should. That's what they believe. That's fine. It's a free country. You can believe that. I can believe this. We're going to win. Everybody in this room doesn't agree, right? There's a lot of folks in this room that thinks free trade's fine. I think it's a radical idea, and I'm a protectionist. We're going to have to work that out as partners. I'm not going to get everything I want. You're not going to get everything you want. There's some people that are interventionists, wants to be all over the globe, right? I'm not. And I consider myself a right-wing militarist. But I got to tell you, inside the White House, the West Wing, I was a dove, right? So we're not going to agree on everything. But we agree on enough of the big things that we've got to work together. Now, I left the White House The one thing I said, I'm going after the Republican establishment. Let me be very blunt. It's just not acceptable to me to have a man like Donald Trump who not just won the presidency, but Mitch McConnell's job
He's got to
is
go.
because of Donald Trump. Wisconsin, Missouri, and what was it? North Carolina. Those senators were all losing. They're expected to lose before Donald Trump won those states and won them as big as he did and dragged them across the finish line. I'd actually argue that a couple of three more. But I'll just take those three. That's what got Mitch McConnell his job. Donald Trump got him his job. And the deplorables in those states got Mitch McConnell the job.
That's right.
Thank you.
Now, I take personal umbrage with the fact that we have 3 committees on Capitol Hill, right, under Republican rule, that are, and by the way, I don't, if there's, was it collusion with the Russians? You know, good look, I was on an ASW submarine that hunted, our task back then in the Cold War was chasing Soviet submarines, right? Making sure we knew where they were. You guys in the room know that. Went back to the Pentagon as a junior officer the day President Reagan started, just to be one of the special assistants to an admiral, but looking at the war plans and how they're implemented. I know the Russians are bad guys. I don't need to be told that, okay? But I was also CEO of the campaign. I will respectfully submit we had a very difficult time colluding with the RNC in the state of Pennsylvania. New Hampshire was no different. But when you have a Senate Judiciary Committee and a Senate Intelligence Committee, and you got a House Intelligence Committee, and every day at the Breitbart Embassy, when somebody comes in, I said, "Hey, who's that Republican that runs that House Intelligence Committee?" And the answer is always Adam Schiff. I said, "No, that's the problem. He doesn't, in fact, run it. He's a minority member. He's got TV. He's got leaking everything every day. He is running it." And then on the Senate side, you got Mark Warner. Mark Warner's running for president in 2020, right? I kind of have a problem with him, essentially, and his staff running the Intel Committee up there with subpoena power and unlimited budget. And I've told folks it's time to bring it to a close. And by the way, I'm not sitting there saying that anything that wasn't done or be looked at. Look at all of it. But work weekends, work thing. But we're going to bring this to a close. It's not acceptable. They're playing into this whole concept of the nullification of election. Let me tell you why. In Washington, D.C., it's not what it seems. Everything you see on cable TV, and I mean virtually everything, on Fox, MSNBC, CNN, all this, it's all pro wrestling, right? It's pro wrestling. That's not the real deal. The real deal is the permanent political class. This interlocking network of donors and consultants and lobbyists and corporatists and globalists, right? 7 of the 9 richest counties in this country surround Washington, D.C. For the first time since the silicon chip was invented, the per capita income in those 7 counties is greater than Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley has created the greatest wealth in the history of mankind. We live in a country now that has ascended economies in Silicon Valley, Wall Street, Hollywood, in Washington, D.C. And everywhere else is a descended economy. Now, how'd that happen? It happened because there's a business model of this permanent political class that accretes essentially all the value to themselves, right? A high school graduate has not had a raise in real dollars since 1972, right? When they had these hurricanes a couple of weeks ago, there's a report came out, 50% of the households, I think it's what, is there 60 million, 100 million households in the country, it means 50 or 60 million. 50 or 60 million households do not have $400 in cash to pay for an emergency. Okay? Is that the kind of country that the revolutionists fought for? Right? Is that the kind of country, Civil War?
No.
Is that the kind of country at Guadalcanal?
No.
Normandy?
No.
That, you know what? You know whose fault this is? It's our fault. We've let that happen, right? That's all human agency. This is not the law of physics. When somebody says, "Oh, the jobs are going to go to Asia," no, the jobs just did not go to Asia. Okay? It was human agency that sent those jobs to Asia, and somebody, in some groups, in some classes, made an awful lot of money out of it, and they're still doing it today. And if you want to have a country that has 80% of the households with $400 in their pocket or can't get $400 in cash in their pocket. We just got to keep down this path. That's where we are today. Now, you saw in Virginia, and the mainstream media is making some huge thing of the repudiation of Trump, but it's not the repudiation of Trump, and I think it's a valuable lesson, and we got to learn lessons. First lesson is November 8th and 9th of last year are just days. Now, they're high holy days, and we will always celebrate them, right? It's the MAGA days, the 8th and the 9th, and we'll always celebrate those, remember the memories and all the great things that happened. But they're just 2 days, right? If you want your country back, you got to work for it every day. Because the people trying to change the direction of this country, they're working every day.
Yeah, they are.
These are hard-working folks. Don't think they're not working. You saw them in Virginia. And I don't like whining. There's a lot of whining going on. Okay? An establishment candidate, a Bush guy, right? He won a primary. The other guy came in second, came close to the Trump guy. Now, the Bush guy kind of didn't really reach out to the Trump people, and we jumped in and tried to help out and try to say, get the Trump guys fired up and said, hey, it's very important. Here's why it's important. You want to win the Senate seat, you want to take on Tim Kaine in 18, you better win this governorship in 17, right? You know, I'm not a big Ed Gillespie fan, but he's a good man, right? Maybe he didn't run a perfect campaign. But the one thing I can tell you, right, and I'm the most fire-breathing populist down there, if we don't put this coalition together, if we can't look at each other and say, hey, I understand we disagree on a lot of stuff, right? 18 is not going to be pretty. Now, it can be tremendous, right? President sticks to the plan, I'm telling you, we can pick up 3 to 5 seats in the Senate, right? And we can hold the House. And we can set the predicate for 400 electoral votes in 2020. That's all in front of us, okay? The one thing that has to happen, I think Kevin McCarthy sent over today, I said last night, because I had Congressman Paul Mitchell was there from Macomb County, and he said there were 180 bills that the House had passed, Senate had taken up. I know in working in the White House, we passed through a lot of immigration stuff, a lot of bills that would be very hard votes for red state Democrats, and they just lingered, right? In fact, they say my campaign against Mitch McConnell, oh, this big guy for Freddie Bannon, and some guy runs his mouth and all this. Well, you know, ever since we started putting the whip hand to him, I noticed they're working 6 days a week. I noticed they passed the budget. I noticed he says he's going to cancel Thanksgiving if they got to work through it, right? I noticed he's coming out with the tax plan tomorrow. They're moving, I notice he's now starting to really push federal judges through there, right? He's working in double time. His only reason he's working at double time because you've got to keep the hammer on these folks every day. If you don't, they're going to do what they want to do on the time frame they want to do it. And if we allow that to happen, there's not a tax, just a tax cut's not going to save us, okay? The focus has got to be here on winning. We know how to win. We just have to put our mind to it, have to put our differences aside and understand you're not going to get everything. I didn't get everything. None of us are. But we get enough. And it's good enough for the next day because if you want to take this country back, it's not just 18 and 24. It's going to be 22 and 20. It's going to be 22, 24. Just on and on and on and on. I'd love to be able to have a magic wand or pat you on the head and tell you it's all going to be good. It's not. Okay? And you folks know it. You guys in the legislation, you know the nuts and bolts that have to be done. This is grassroots dinner. This is the reason I came here. That's what wins in a digital age. The analog is more important. What's going to win is very simple. Authentic candidates like Donald Trump, big actionable ideas like build the wall, right, drain the swamp, and then grassroots, using digital technology to go door to door. In this era, it's not commercials. Commercials are a waste of money. That's why the system down there all wants to raise this money and spend it on commercials. They don't work. It's a compensation system. They're skimming 20% off the top from the donors who I now think are wising up to this, right? Because the best thing is somebody going door to door. It's the way Obama won. You go door to door with passion, and people know in the neighborhood how you comport yourself, how you live your life. That what you say means something. That's the way you win. You ring a doorbell and tell somebody about Donald Trump. That's what the grassroots movement is. You put an army of grassroots people together, we will win election after election after election. But that's what it's going to take. We're in the great fourth turning of American history, right? These turnings happen about every 80 to 100 years. There's a bunch of books out there and a bunch of analysis, but if you drill down into it, you'll see it's a recurrent pattern. We've had it in the Revolution, in the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War II. It comes about every 80 to 100 years. Now, I don't know where this fourth turning started, whether it was 9/11 or the financial crisis in 2008. Maybe President Xi's speech the other night. His last week, he gave a 3-hour speech, 68 pages long. I recommend everybody in this room go to the internet and read it, okay? Because it's a speech that even Hitler and Mussolini and Tojo couldn't have given. It lays out pretty succinctly how the Confucian mercantilist dictatorship in China has won, at least from their perspective. They're the new hegemonic power, right? And they're going to take a lot more than our jobs in the future, because they've already taken the large majority of those. In fact, that's what connects Brexit. Everybody says Brexit in 2016. Well, we saw Brexit. We started Breitbart London, in 2013, because we knew England was going to be a canary in the mine shaft to this populist movement in the United States. But why is Brexit in 2016? They're connected because of China. China, they're exporting their deflation and exporting their excess capacity. They gutted the Midlands industrial base of England, and they gutted the upper Midwest of the United States. And it's those voters in England and the United States that have voted to get out of, it's the labor voters and the working class conservative voters that voted to get out of the EU, and the working class and middle class in this country that voted Donald J. Trump. Fourth turnings take anywhere from 20 to 25, 30 years to go through it, right? I can tell you one thing, at the end of this one, the next 15 or 20 years, we're going to be one of two things. We're either going to be the country that was bequeathed to us, or we're going to be something radically different, okay? It's just not economic, it's just not they think they're socialists. Look at the cultural, look at where they want to go, look what they did to the monuments. I'm from the South, I'm not talking Lee and Jackson. Look what they did up in New York City, to Teddy Roosevelt, to Columbus, okay? That's what's coming. And the only way to stop it is you folks in this room. It's not Donald Trump, it's not Steve Bannon, it's not Laura Ingraham or Mark Meadows. It's going to be you. The responsibility is on your shoulders, right? Now, when I think about what teams you could select or what teams you could pick, I couldn't think of a better team, right? I'll take you guys any day of the week. But we got to get serious about this, because serious business. We got to start conducting ourselves like a great power. We can't have the nonsense, the happy talk, the misdirection plays. We need to have folks like you hold these people accountable every day of the week. The beginning step of that was the Trump Revolution on November 8th and 9th of 2016. We celebrate the first anniversary of this tonight. Let's hope that those little kids, when you go home tonight, your grandkids, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years old, when they hold this dinner 40 years from now, we've done our duty. Thank you very much.